Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
Lionshare Bookkeeping believes the key to generating wealth is understanding where it comes from and where it needs to go. They provide bookkeeping and financial coaching exclusively to real estate investors, focusing on cash flow, strategy, and action. Go to lionsharebookkeeping.com/apartments to connect with them now. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I am your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Mike Ciorrocco. Mike is the CEO of People Building Incorporated and co-founder of Blueprinted. He is a performance coach, author, dynamic public speaker, visionary, and thought leader. He's built a highly successful mortgage division with his best friends twice and was named #1 on the list of top mortgage professionals by Yahoo Finance. You're going to enjoy this show with Mike today, no matter where you're at in your entrepreneurial journey, whether you are beginning, just thinking about it, or someone who's been an entrepreneur for many, many years. Mike really, he goes into mindset in a big way. Marketing and branding and some of that is his. He's become really good at it and very well known for it. But he went way back to just the mindset and some of the turning points in his life through some difficult times where he used those difficult things really to, instead of becoming a victim, unfortunately, like so many people do, he used those events to propel him forward and now just create that mindset now. So anything that happens, he just uses it, whether it's negative or positive, he just uses it to propel him forward. He talked about, having mentors and riding in people's jet streams. It's like, let's not recreate the wheel. There's people that are ahead of you that have done it. But he just goes out on and on about mindset and really being stubborn, how being stubborn can be a very good thing if it's done correctly. So I hope you enjoy the show. Mike, welcome to the show. You have some expertise that I know the listeners and myself we're going to learn so much today from you that's going to help our business and thinking about how we're presenting ourselves, how we're marketing, branding, all those things you're an expert at. But I want to go back a little bit and give us a little bit about who you are, how you got to this point, and what you're focused on right now. I know you also wrote an amazing book called Rocket Fuel that we're going to get to also that I know the listeners would learn so much from as well. But who are you, Mike? What's your focus right now?
Yeah, Whitney, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. Gratitude is such an important thing in my life. And I always start the interviews that I go on with gratitude to you and to the listeners for showing up. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm just a guy that came from humble beginnings, man, a broken family, broken home, don't remember my parents together, and was challenged by my father after going through an abusive situation for 3 years from 8 to 11, with him crumpling up a $100 bill and throwing it at me and say I was going to need it when I was living on the streets with my mother one day. There's a long story to attach that we could probably dive into a little bit, but mainly that's where a spark was lit in me to prove him wrong. Whether that's healthy or not, that's not up for me to decide. I just use it as fuel. And so for 30 some years, I've been driving off this little spark that my dad gave me. I look at it and choose to do it that way. Unfortunately, I don't have a relationship with my father at this point. Not up to me, but I use it as an asset, as a resource. And so I've from there understood that, myself and everyone are unstoppable to live in the life of their dreams, as if they can just take everything that would stop them or slow them down and store it in their fuel tank instead of their trunk where most people store it and weighs them down, and convert it into rocket fuel for your future. And that's my mission. That's what I do. Everything I do, I'm into a lot of things: mortgages, podcasting, authoring books, tech. I'm into a lot of things, but it's all centered around the fact that all people are unstoppable to live in the life of their dreams.
All people are unstoppable to living the life of their dreams. I love that. Can you give us just a little bit of the background of the rocket fuel philosophy, and maybe even use that, your story there a little bit, helping the listener right now that maybe they're thinking about that thing constantly, that they feel like it's holding them back instead of turning it into rocket fuel.
Yeah. So growing up, I was around a lot of broken people, emotional, psychological, drugs, alcohol, suicide. divorce, as I mentioned already. I was around a lot of that growing up. And so I felt like that most of the time I was having things come my way that were not propelling me. And so with that being the case, I wasn't okay with that. I was trying to figure out a way that if I could take everything that would stop me or slow me down and use it instead of letting it hold me back, that I could achieve great things. And if I could help others with that, that would be even better. And so at a young age, about 11 years old, this is when this concept started to come into play. So everything and by the way, I moved schools a lot when I was a young kid because of my parents' situation. And I would be going into situations a lot of times where it was strange, uncomfortable, new friends, leaving old ones behind, getting jumped and beat up, beaten in, as they would call it. And so I had to figure ways out because I was not going to be okay with just being a victim and living the life that somebody else determined for me. And I contribute a lot to the fact that my mom told me that I need to stick to my guns when I'm believing in something. See, when she was going to file court papers to get me out of an abusive situation, my dad's house with my stepmother, she said that you cannot leave me out on a limb, out hanging out to dry. If I go to the courts, you need to stick to your guns, because when you believe in something in life, people are going to try to talk you out of it. They're going to try to pull you back to them if you're selling, or they're going to try to just pull you back or talk you out of it to match their agenda, because people have agendas. And she was really talking about my dad at that point, making sure that I wasn't talked out of wanting to move out of that abusive situation. And so I remember her saying that to me. And what I took that as is stubborn. And I used to be called stubborn by people that were abusive to me. Oh, you're stubborn. You're a hardhead. And I always looked at it as a bad thing until my mom told me about sticking to your guns. And so if you look up the definition of stubborn, it's perversely unyielding in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. That's one of the definitions. If you're perversely unyielding towards something and it's on the right thing, you become unstoppable. And so I'll wrap it up with this. In reading, I do a lot of reading. And there was a word that I came across recently, was inexorable. Inexorable, if you're taking notes, you might want to write that word down. Inexorable is how I live my life based on going towards my mission. And so inexorable means unyielding, unable to be stopped. And so everything I do is wrapped around that.
I love being stubborn is okay if it's on the right things, right? If it is on the right things.
Right.
I often talk about my military background and say they gave me that never give up mentality, very similar, right? You know what? It doesn't matter what other people say. You know what? I know this is the focus. I know this is the goal. Just tell me how to get there, right? Just show me the direction. Let's just get started instead of focusing on how difficult it is or being the victim, like you talked about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's move forward a little bit, and let's talk about the marketing branding piece that you are so good at. And obviously our listeners are, many of them are past investors. Many are trying to get their business started. And obviously in our business, people have to know who you are, right? And we do that through good marketing and branding and leveraging social media and those things. I'd love to just dive into that a little bit with you and how, just your thoughts on good marketing, good branding. Obviously, when you know a little bit about our industry there. I'm not sure how much you know about our industry, but that's who a lot of the people are that are listening, right? They're trying to build their investment business. You mentioned, Grant Cardone, similar businesses to him, obviously not to that scale yet, but that's what they're trying to do.
Right. Yeah. So just a quick background. I'm in the mortgage industry. I have a large division that I run for Nations Lending, and I have anywhere between 35 and 40 employees, depending on the day. And there was back in 2017, I decided that, I need to be doing more. I don't know why. I just felt this feeling. I was in my early 40s and I was thinking, I'm just not playing a big enough game. And I think a lot of the investors are feeling that way. They'll get anxiety or they'll get a passion towards something and they just don't feel quite right. They feel like, man, I should be accomplishing more. Or they want their money to accomplish more, because that's what investing is all about, is having your money make more and work for you. And so I started thinking, like, I got to figure out a way to do this. And I was telling my people all the time, hey, we got to get known in our local market. If nobody knows us, we're not going to be able to do business. You're just going to wait for the phone to ring, and that's never enough business. We got to get known. And so I started thinking to myself, wait a minute, I'm telling them to do this and I'm not doing a good enough job myself. And so I said, look, if I can figure out a way to get known, not in my local market, but in my region, my state, my region, or how about the country? And then I said, well, if I'm going to go that big, I might as well go global. And I was thinking, well, maybe now with all the UFO talk, maybe if there's aliens, let's get them to know who I am. And so I just started manifesting this fantasy in my head. And I don't think there's anything wrong with imagining. Imagining is a powerful tool for me. Just thinking really, really super big. If you're going to go, why don't just go as far as you can? And by the way, we don't know our potential. So when you're investing, you really don't know what your potential is until you try and make an effort towards it and then do it again and again and again and keep learning. So I just had this thing of unlimiting accomplishment, unlimiting potential in my head. So I decided to figure out how could I get known globally or by aliens. It's a little joke, of course, hopefully. But then I started obsessing every morning. How can I get known? So I think this is the foundation of it, Whitney. Before we get into strategies and techniques, I think we need to, one, be inexorable, right? Unable to be stopped. We have to operate this way. We have to understand that we are not limited by our experiences from the past or what people have told us around us or what our mind is telling us. We have to understand that our potential is beyond what we can imagine. That foundation is so important. And that's why we talked about Grant, and I'm not trying to promote him right now, but that's why he keeps elevating. That's why people that are super successful keep elevating, because they understand that their potential is something that is unknown and they will refuse to be limited by anything besides just keep going and trying to grow. So that was the first step, is that foundation. Once I had that foundation, I was then searching for ways to get known globally. And what are the ways? Well, I could write a book. I could start a podcast. I could go on other people's podcasts. I could be all over social media on every channel possible that I could think of and just go and be obsessed with it and never be satisfied with it. Be happy as you're doing it. Enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, but just never be satisfied that it's enough. And I know that may sound obsessive to some people, but for me, it's something that it is an obsession. And it's the only way I could have gotten as far as I've gotten in the last 3 to 4 years is by being obsessed and looking at all avenues. And one other thing I'll add, if you ever dump a bucket of water on a concrete slab that has obstructions to the water spreading out or cracks or what have you, the water will spread out. And this is what I want people to think about when they're investing and learning investing or anything they want to learn in their life. When that water is poured down on that concrete, that water will spread out and it will hit an obstruction in the direction of where it wants to go, but then it won't be able to go. So then what it does is it searches out, it seeks out openings. It seeks out other opportunities. This is how we have to live our lives. We have to go hard in one direction. When we hit an obstacle, we have to figure out our ways around it. Some people think that, being unyielding means that you got to just keep going and banging into an obstruction. If you're investing and you're going down the wrong route and you got a deal in front of you and the numbers aren't just aren't working, but you are romanticized by that deal for some reason, it doesn't mean being unyielding and inexorable doesn't mean that you need to keep going after that deal if the numbers don't work or something else is
I
off.
love that visual, though. I love the visual of the water and the concrete, and it hits an obstruction and it goes around it. And depending on the size of the obstruction, it's going to meet pretty quickly, probably on the other side, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And keep going.
That's the point, right? So when you're going through this is the attitude and the mindset that you have to have. If you have this mindset, and basically it comes down to there's a solution to every problem. No matter the size of the problem, no matter the complexity, there is a solution to every problem. And that's what the water reminds me of. And that's how I think of myself as I'm going around. By the way, I scoop up the obstacles and store them in my fuel tank, as I mentioned before. But yeah, that's a little bit that I have on that part for the investors as far as mindset goes.
It's incredible. I mean, operate by being unstoppable and can't be limited by what others tell us or others. I mean, that alone is going to help you to get so much further, right? Even if you have, nothing else about growing a business, just having the mindset of being unstoppable and being like that water, being willing to go around those obstacles and fast. But also, I like how you talked about just getting to the mindset of going global. Right. Like that's so hard for most of us to even think about, when most people are just focused in their own community or in their own market. If you change that mindset to global, all of a sudden we have to change the way we're doing things and we're going to grow so much faster. Right. I mean, just changing that mindset alone.
Yeah. Rocket fuel. I named it rocket fuel for a reason. I didn't say gasoline or petro. I said rocket fuel because I want to get other people coming with me to go to outer space. Now, obviously not for me, I really don't want to go to outer space literally, but figuratively, going big, going outside of where you think you can go. And there's a book called U Squared recently that I read, Whitney. I thought I had it here somewhere, but U Squared, it's you and then a little two, I forget what you call that when it's up high, U Squared. Anyway, that book by Price Pritchett really got my mind thinking that it's okay to take incremental steps towards success if you're going to stay still or not do anything at all. But do not close your mind off to quantum leaps of things happening miraculously where you are here at point A and all of a sudden you're somehow able to jump to point B.
Or D.
We cannot close ourselves off to that. It's very important. And that's a mindset that investors need to have as well. Like you can't hit a home run every time, but don't close yourself off to a home run happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Or skipping a few of those letters, right? From A to D or exactly. It can't happen. Right. Well, as you have done that, what were a few of the pieces that allowed you to scale quickly, or that was the rocket fuel, or whether it was the marketing or the branding, or, you mentioned all those things earlier, right? Whether it's podcasting, all those things you mentioned, what were a few of the first few things, or maybe the blueprint kind of to helping you to succeed quickly and go global?
Yeah. I love the word blueprinted, by the way, you just mentioned, but mentors is one. And a mentor doesn't have to be somebody that you meet with in person or even just one-on-one coaching or anything like that. Mentor can be somebody that you observe from afar and you just totally immerse yourself in their content. And that's somebody that's doing something that you want to do, is somewhere that you want to be, or has been through what you need to go through. That's an important thing for me. The other thing is riding in people's jet streams. And what I mean by that is find someone that's successful, figure out a way that you can add value to them, whether it's purchasing their content, their programs, donating to their charity. Just think of something. And by the way, don't go to the person and say, "Hey, how can I help you?" Or what can I do? Like, what do you need? Figure it out. Immerse yourself in their content. And then what you'll do by doing that, you'll realize what their needs are and how you can offer some kind of assistance. That's what I did, especially with Grant. For those of you who don't know, Grant Cardone and 10X Movement, I just immersed myself in his content, purchased some of his things, used some of those things, had success with the things, became a case study for the stuff. And then from there, looked for opportunities and ways, very intentionally, where I could help him blow up his business. In doing that, I'm in his community all over the place. They're talking about me. They see me. All the community, the followers know who I am now. You see, so if you're in investing, the best thing to do is to get into some kind of mentorship program, community, or something, and start making noise in a good way. And when people start to know who you are and you be yourself, as long as you're working ethically and trying to do the right things, and you'll get noticed and people will want to be around you. It'll be attractive. And that's my whole thing is how can I become attractive? How can I pull people into me? And that's the route that I took.
That's some great tips there. And it seems so simple, right? But it takes some action, no doubt about it. Getting into a mentorship program of some kind, having that mentor, getting in that community, so valuable, kind of like a mastermind or something. 1,000 shows. Can you believe it? I can't. I cannot believe we have recorded more than 1,000 interviews with experts in this business. We could not have reached this milestone without you, our listeners. I am personally grateful for each of you that are listening, and I hope that you are learning more every day from the interviews and the experts that we're having on the show. Just to say thank you, I want to offer a gift to the first 100 listeners that sign up. You need to go to the website, to the podcast page at LifeBridge Capital. There'll be a short form to fill out just so we can send you a gift to say thank you, but only to the first 100. I look forward to connecting with you. Please reach out if we can help in any way. But tell me, give the listener maybe some examples of how you start making some noise in a good way. Like you said, what are some, help them to have some thoughts in that direction? Like, how do they do that?
Well, the way I look at it is if I'm going to be on a Zoom call or some kind of community thing, or if there's a Facebook group, or I'm going to engage in it. I'm going to go to events. I'm going to make sure when I'm on screen that I'm looking engaged and ready to go, not in my phone and all this other stuff. I always have this background. This is my podcast studio, obviously, but I've always had a background behind me with the word Ciorrocco. So my branding is very well seen, and everywhere that I go, people will see that. I want people to know it. If they don't like it, tough. They know who I am, though. Like if somebody says, man, he's always got that thing back there, he's self-promoting. They're just mad because they're not promoting themselves enough. And I don't let that stop me. So many people will not promote themselves and create a brand for themselves and give to people because they're worried about what people think. And they'll let those people that think those ways limit them instead of being more concerned with how people experience you. I'd rather be concerned with how people experience me than what they think. And ever since I've done that, Whitney, it's been like a rocket fuel trajectory of my graphs. Everything from as far as me getting out of obscurity, the attractiveness that I have where people want to be around me, want to do projects with me, businesses with me, has just, like I said, skyrocketed. And so, by the way, I talked about the mindset first. It's very important. Most people won't do all the stuff that I just talked about. The 300 interviews over the last year that I've done without being obsessed, man.
And you mean being interviewed 300 times?
Yeah, I've been interviewed 300 times. I've done my show. I think I'm on episode 150 or something of my show. I'm constantly filming videos and content just on my phone, not worrying about what people think, just pushing myself out there. So people like the one thing about me is if I ever needed a job, I could just tell somebody to Google me. And I've put so much content out there over the last 2 years because I was obsessed and intentional that it's hard. It's just hard to like for somebody not to know who I am, not to know like what kind of person they're going to get when it comes to me. And if you can approach life this way, you don't ever have anything to worry about.
I love it's so big about just getting past what other people think. I mean, that alone just holds so many people back, right? I love even mentioning numbers like being interviewed 300 times this year. I think I only know of a few people that have done that. And I think that does show just the obsession to just making it happen, being known, going global, like you mentioned, putting a number like that, I think is helpful to the listeners as well that think, 20 times a year is a lot, and so, I mean, it's great, right? It's great to think through that and putting yourself out there, even the videos, like you said, on your phone, don't care what other people think. Hey, I'm just sharing what I'm learning, sharing who I am, these things, and people, and it's attractive, right? To your followers, right? Maybe not to everyone, but that's okay. That's okay.
So not to cut you off, but you'll filter out the people that you shouldn't be around by doing this. The people that don't like it, they're not supposed to be in your world right now. And by the way, I'm not making this stuff up. I just follow a mentor that already did it. And I'm just doing what he did without really thinking. Like, why would I start to think is when I start to think,
right.
I start to think that mental stuff happens and fear sets in. And, so I'm not okay with that. So I don't think about it. I just do it.
Yeah. I have a very similar story myself. There's no sense in trying to recreate the wheel. No doubt about it. What are a couple other, now that you're where you're at now, you started just putting yourself out there as hard as you can go. What are some of the challenges now you have as far as around the marketing piece and getting, and scaling globally, continually, pursuing that?
My biggest thing I've always had is the niche. I look at people that have like a medical practice, and the ones that are specialists are the ones that make more money. And that works in marketing too. You have to be niched. And my thing is that I don't want to be boxed in like that. I have a big problem. I don't know what it is with me, but I just feel like I want to reach a lot of people. And if you niche, you don't reach as many people. And so I fight that a lot of times, that's my biggest challenge is, okay, what's the niche? What am I going to go after? And then who am I going to leave out when I do that? That's just always been the biggest thing for me, challenge wise, when I know I need to do it. I know I need a niche, but I just don't want to be boxed in. It's just not something, personality wise that I'm okay with. So
how do you determine who that niche is? Of course, people ask me about podcasting all the time. We've done over 1,000 shows now daily, every day, 7 days a week. And so everybody wants to know about that. And one of the first things everybody always asks about, well, how far do I need to niche down? Right. And it's important to niche down, but in your case, I've struggled with the same thing, especially doing a daily show, finding enough guests. If we were too niche down, right, 30 people a month, how have you combated that to where it's okay, or where you found your audience and you've created, who you're reaching that you're okay with?
I think I basically have chosen to follow two things: money and passion. This is why I got into the tech space, but also what allows me also to continue to not have to, with my podcast and my interviews, it doesn't require me to niche down with those things. I can still focus on the business side of things and niche with the business and kind of separated the two. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it does. And so your podcast, I guess you can kind of float the podcast a little more. It doesn't have to be as niched, or did I have to get that backwards?
Well, my podcast is all about people that have had success and then bringing them on the show to share the ingredients that have gone into creating their success.
And most of those things are universal, right? Or could be used by many different businesses and entrepreneurs.
Right.
So what's the next big thing for you, Mike, that's going to help take you to the next level?
The next big thing for us is the launch, and I know the camera's going in and out. I apologize for those watching.
That's all right.
The next big thing for us is this tech business that we're starting. We co-founded a company called Blueprinted. It's a new product that's coming out. Project management meets social media meets consulting, coaching. Basically, if anybody that's had success in any vertical can document their success in a step-by-step process, then what we do is we allow people to build their plans in our system and then take it to the marketplace and sell your blueprint to success, so that people would just need to add action and great attitude. And anybody that could add action and great attitude to just steps, it makes success easier. So that's what Blueprinted is all about. It's basically, I found that digital training courses with videos are just not effective. 83% aren't even completed when people buy those. So what I realized after seeing that was that there's an issue that if people just had the steps, just give me the steps, tell me what to do. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, if you encounter this, do step A. If you counter this, do step B, and then move on to step 4, and so on. It would almost guarantee success. So that's what we created. I'm really fired up about that. And then as well as other tech products that we're going to be launching in the tech portfolio. If anybody's listening, by the way, that has a tech idea, if you reach out to me anywhere, Instagram, LinkedIn, I would be happy to walk you through the steps of figuring out if that idea is validated and maybe even co-founding a company with you.
No, that's awesome. And Blueprinted, I think it's, the focus and the time spent on creating this shows the value in knowing where you're going, right? Laying out the steps to get there. And that's going to help you do that. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, any business relies on systems and procedures, right? And standard operating procedures. And the more thorough and granular you are with those, the more success you can have, the more scaling you can do. And so that's where I kind of got this idea, and we did research in the market and validated that idea, and everybody I've talked to cannot wait for this product to come out. So it's going to be a game changer. And I'm just fired up to get it in people's hands.
Mike, what are some daily habits that you have that you're disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
First thing in the morning, I wake up, I say, thank you. I literally wiggle my fingers and toes and pay attention to the fact that I have hands, I have feet, arms and legs. I can see. I go through this every single day. It gets rid of everything I had to complain about. I do some kind of exercising. I write my goals down. I say to myself over and over again what I want to achieve throughout the day. When I'm not doing something like particular, I will literally talk to myself out loud and say things that I want to achieve. And what happens, by the way, Whitney, when that happens, I start to notice that opportunities keep popping up to achieve whatever I've been saying. I'm actually creating my future by doing that. And too many people don't believe in it, so they don't do it. And when you don't believe in it, you will never see it. So it's a kind of thing where you can't see things first and then believe in it. You have to believe first to be able to see. I always like, and this is another thing for, if you're taking notes, you might want to write this down. Like I have this book here and there's writing on this book. Okay. That writing is on that page. But if I have the need for bifocals, or as people call them, readers, if I have the need for those, I may not see the writing on that book, or it might be blurry. Even though
it may have been in front of you the whole time.
Even though the words are there. When you put the readers on, which is your belief, you believe now, the words appear, even though they were there the whole time. So belief and faith are very, very powerful. I know we hear about it all the time, but I like to relate those to stories like the writing on a paper. It's there all the time. Just because you can't see resources that are going to help you achieve your goal doesn't mean they're not there. Once you start believing and start talking to yourself about your future and what you want, they start to appear.
It's like you start to see opportunities that many times have been there all along. Right. That you were blind to. What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
The number one thing is my understanding of how my mind works and understanding that I am unlimited in my potential, in my mind and my spirit and intellect. And once I realize that, then nobody can tell me any differently. No event that takes place, no setback, nothing takes that from me. And once you understand this as well, nothing will be able to stop you. Until we're plucked from this planet, you'll be able to continue on to doing whatever you want and having the life of your dreams. And that's the biggest thing for me, was understanding that. And once I gained that concept that I was put here by an all-powerful creator, and I'd be naive to think that he put me here with limitations on my spirit and intellect and mind, it was a game changer.
Mike, how do you like to give back?
I like to give back by everything. If you guys notice, if you're on social media and you follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, everything I do, I don't charge for. Everything I put out, all the content that I put out, man, I'm shelling money out and time like you would not believe right now. And it's because I'm committed. I'm committed to giving, and I'm committing to getting known to be the guy that can show you how to be unstoppable. And so I love that. And then there's one particular charity that I absolutely love, which is Believe in Tomorrow. They have a children's house by the sea, which is when terminally ill kids don't have time for vacations and the families don't have time for vacations. They provide a vacation at the beach for the family. And I just love that organization.
Mike, I'm grateful for just meeting you personally and just really, we've really talked about as much mindset as anything, I feel like, and it's so important, right? It's so important just operating to be unstoppable and not thinking about what others think, even expanding your mind to think globally as opposed to just, having the blinders on, which I was there at one time and can relate to that. And thinking about who's in your network, who's surrounding you, even the analogy of the water on the concrete. I love that, and going around those obstacles. But tell the listeners though, again, how they can get in touch with you any other way, and also how they can learn about your book, Rocket Fuel.
Yeah. So if you go to MikeCiorrocco.com, MikeCiorrocco.com, you can get the book. You can check things about me. And of course, I'm on Instagram, Clubhouse, LinkedIn. All you got to do is look up Mike Ciorrocco. I made it very easy for you. And please engage with me. I love answering the DMs and messages. Be happy to answer any questions that you have. But the reason I'd stick with mindset, because if you don't have that foundation, you're not going to do all the strategies and techniques that Whitney or any of his other guests talk about.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.